Shalom and welcome to Torah and Coffee. Almost as good as the Torah teaching. We are in Leviticus chapter 14, and we're going to start at verse 1. We're going to go through chapter 15 in Leviticus. Then we're going to read 2 Kings 7. And in the BeritHadasah, we're going to read Matthew 13, 4 through 26, Mark 5, 24 to 34, Luke 8, 42 to 48, and Hebrews 13, verse 4. Oh, by the way, 2 Kings 7 is 3 through 20. Let's start with reading Leviticus chapter 14, starting at verse 1. Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, "This shall be the ritual for a leper at the time that he is to be cleansed, when it has been reported to the Cohen. The Cohen shall go outside the camp, for the Cohen sees that the leper has been healed of his scaly affliction. The Cohen shall order 2 live clean birds, cedar wood, crimson stuff, and hyssop to be brought for him who is to be cleansed. The Cohen shall order one of the birds slaughtered over fresh water in an earthen vessel, and he shall take the live bird along with the cedar wood, the crimson stuff, and the hyssop, and dip them together with the live bird in the blood of the bird that was slaughtered over the fresh water. He shall then sprinkle it 7 times on him who is to be cleansed of the eruption, and cleanse him, and he shall set the live bird free in the open country. The one to be cleansed shall wash his clothes, shall shave off all his hair, and bathe in water. Then he shall be clean. After that he may enter the camp, but he must remain outside his tent 7 days. On the 7th day he shall shave off all his hair of head, beard, and eyebrows. When he has shaved off all his hair, he shall wash his clothes and bathe his body in water. Then he shall be clean. On the 8th day he shall take 2 male lambs without blemish, 1 ewe lamb in the 1st year without blemish, 3/10 of a measure of choice flour with oil mixed in for a meal offering, and 1 lock of oil. These shall be presented before Yahweh with the man to be cleansed at the entrance of the tent of meeting by the Cohen who performs the cleansing. The Cohen shall take one of the male lambs and offer it with the log of oil as a guilt offering, and he shall elevate them as an elevation offering before Yahweh. The lamb shall be slaughtered at the spot in the sacred area where the sin offering and the burnt offering are slaughtered, for the guilt offering, like the sin offering, goes for the Cohen. It is most holy. The Cohen shall take some of the blood of the guilt offering, and the Cohen shall put it on the ridge of the right ear of him who is being cleansed, and on the thumb of his right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot. The Cohen shall then take some of the log of oil and pour it into the palm of his own left hand, and the Cohen shall dip his right finger in the oil that is in the palm of his left hand, and sprinkle some of the oil with his fingers 7 times before Yahweh. Some of the oil left in the palm shall be put by the Cohen on the right of the 17. Some of the oil left in his palm shall be put by the Cohen on the ridge of the right ear of the one being cleansed, on the right thumb of his right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot, over the blood of the guilt offering. The rest of the oil in the palm of the Cohen shall put on the head of the one being cleansed. Thus the Cohen shall make expiation for him before Yahweh. The Cohen shall then offer the sin offering and make expiation for the one being cleansed of his uncleanness. Last, the burnt offering shall be slaughtered, and the Cohen shall offer the burnt offering and the meal offering on the Mizpah, and the Cohen shall make expiation for him, then he shall be clean. If, however, he is poor and his means were insufficient, he shall take one male lamb for a guilt offering to be elevated in expiation for him, 1/10 of measure of choice flour with oil mixed in for a meal offering, and a log of oil, and 2 turtle doves or 2 pigeons, depending on his means, the one to be the sin offering and the other the burnt offering. On the 8th day of the cleansing he shall bring them to the Cohen at the entrance of the tent of meeting before Yahweh. The Cohen shall take the lamb of guilt offering and the log of oil and elevate them as an elevation offering before Yahweh. When the lamb of guilt offering has been slaughtered, the Cohen shall take some of the blood of the guilt offering and put it on the ridge of the right ear of the one being cleansed, on the right thumb of the right hand, and on the big toe of the right foot. The Cohen shall then put some of the oil into the palm of his hand, of his left hand, and with the finger of his right hand the Cohen shall sprinkle some of the oil that is in the palm of his left hand 7 times before Yahweh. Some of the oil in his palm shall be put by the Cohen on the ridge of the right ear of the one being cleansed, on the thumb of the right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot, over the same places as the blood of the guilt offering. And what is left of the oil in the palm of the Cohen shall put on the head of the one being cleansed, to make expiation for him before Yahweh. He shall then offer one of the turtle doves or pigeons, depending on the means, whichever he can afford, the one as a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering, together with the meal offering. Thus the Cohen shall make expiation before Yahweh for the one being cleansed. Such is the ritual for him who has a saintly affection, and whosoever and whose means for his cleansing are limited. Yahweh said to Moshe and Aaron, saying, when you enter the land of Canaan, and I will give you as a possession, I inflict an eruptive plague upon the house of the land of possession. Excuse me. The owner of the house shall come and tell the Cohen, saying, something like a plague has appeared upon my house. The Cohen shall order the house cleared before the Cohen enters to examine the plague, so that nothing in the house may become unclean. After that, the Cohen shall enter to examine the house. He then, if when he examines the plague in the walls of the house is found to consist with greenish or reddish streaks that appear to be deep in the wall. The Cohen shall come out of the house to the entrance of the house and close up the house for 7 days. On the 7th day the Cohen shall return if he sees that the plague has spread in the walls of the house. The Cohen shall order the stones with the plague in them to be pulled out and cast outside the city into an unclean place. The house shall be scraped inside all around, and the coating that is scraped off shall be dumped outside the city in an unclean place. They shall take other stones and replace those stones with them, and take other coating and plaster the house. If the plague again breaks out in the house, after the stones have been pulled out and after the house has been scraped and replastered, the Cohen shall come to examine it. If the plague has spread in the house, it is malignant eruption in the house, it is unclean. The house shall be torn down, its stones and timbers, and all the coating on the house, and taken to an unclean place outside the city. Whoever enters the house while it is closed up shall be unclean until evening. Whoever sleeps in the house must wash his clothes, and whoever eats in the house must wash his clothes. If, however, the Cohen comes and sees that the plague has not spread in the house after the house was replastered, the Cohen shall pronounce the house clean, for the plague has healed. To purge the house, he shall take 2 birds, cedar wood, crimson stuff, and hyssop. He shall slaughter the 1 bird over fresh water in the earthen vessel. He shall take the cedar wood of hyssop, the crimson stuff, and the live bird, and dip them in the blood of the slaughtered bird, and the fresh water, and sprinkle on the house 7 times. Having purged the house with the blood, and the bird, the fresh water, the live bird, the cedar wood, and the hyssop, and the crimson stuff, he shall set the live bird free outside the city to the open country. Thus he shall make expiation for the house, and it shall be clean. Such is the ritual for every eruptive infection, for scales, for an eruption on a cloth or a house, for swellings, for rashes, or for discoloration, to determine when they are unclean and when they are clean. Such is the ritual concerning eruption. Leviticus 15, starting at verse 1. Yahweh spoke to Moshe and Aaron, saying, Speak to Bnei Israel and say to them, when any man has a discharge issuing from his member, he is unclean. The uncleanness from his discharge shall mean the following: whether his member runs with the discharge or is stopped up so that there is no discharge. His uncleanness means this: any bedding on which the one with discharge lies shall be unclean, and every object on which he sits shall be unclean. If anyone who touches his bedding shall wash his clothes, bathe in water, and remain unclean until evening. Whoever sits on an object on which the one with the discharge has sat shall wash his clothes, bathe in the water, and remain unclean until evening. Whoever touches the body of the one with the discharge shall be wash his clothes, bathe in water, and remain unclean until evening. If anyone with a discharge spits on one who is unclean, the latter shall wash his clothes, bathe in water, and remain unclean until evening. If any, for writing that one with a discharge has mounted, shall be unclean. Whoever touches anything that was under him shall be unclean until evening. And whoever carries such things shall wash his clothes, bathe in water, and remain unclean until evening. If one with a discharge, without having rinsed his hands in water, touches another person, that person shall wash his clothes, bathe in water, and remain unclean until evening. An earthen vessel that one with the discharge touches shall be broken, and any wooden implement shall be rinsed with water. When one with the discharge becomes clean of his discharge, he shall count off 7 days for his cleansing, wash his clothes, and bathe his body in fresh water. Then he shall be clean. On the 8th day he shall take 2 turtle doves or 2 pigeons, and come before Yahweh at the entrance of the tent of meeting, and give them to the Kohen. The Kohen shall offer them, the one as a sin offering, and the other as a burnt offering. Thus the Kohen shall make expiation on his behalf for his discharge before Yahweh. When a man has an emission of semen, he shall bathe his whole body in water and remain unclean until evening. All clothes or leather on which semen fell shall be washed in water and remain unclean until evening. And if a man has carnal relations with a woman, they shall bathe in water and remain unclean until evening. When a woman has a discharge, her discharge being brought from her body shall remain in her impurity 7 days. Whoever touches her shall be unclean until evening. Anything that she lies on during the impurity shall be unclean, and anything that she sits on shall be unclean. Anyone who touches her bedding shall wash his clothes, bathe in water, and remain unclean until evening. And anyone who touches any object on which she has sat shall wash his clothes, bathe in water, and remain unclean until evening. Be it the bedding, or be it the object on which she has sat, on touching it, he shall be unclean until evening. And if any man lies with her, his impurity is communicated to him. He shall be unclean 7 days, and any bedding on which he lies shall become unclean. When a woman has had a discharge of blood for many days, not at the time of impurity, or when she has a discharge beyond her period of impurity, she shall be unclean as though at the time of her impurity, as long as her discharge lasts. Any bedding on which she lies while her discharge lasts, all shall be for the like bedding during the impurity, and any object on which she sits shall become unclean, as it does during her impurity. Whoever touches them shall be unclean. He shall wash his clothes, bathe in water, and remain unclean until evening. When she becomes clean of her discharge, she shall count off 7 days, and after that she shall be clean. On the 8th day She shall take 2 turtle doves or 2 pigeons and bring them to the cone at the entrance of the tent of meeting. The cone shall offer the one as a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering, and the cone shall make expiation on her behalf for unclean discharge before Yahweh. You shall put the Israelites on guard against the uncleanness, lest they die through the uncleanness by defiling my Mishkan, which is among them. Such is the ritual concerning him who has a discharge, concerning him who has an emission of semen and becomes unclean thereby, and concerning her who is a menstrual infirmity, and concerning anyone, male or female, who has a discharge, and concerning a man who lies with an unclean woman. Thank you, Lord. Let's turn to 2 Kings chapter 7. It's starting at verse 4 to 26, but we're going to read the whole chapter. 2 Kings 7. Starting at verse 1. And Eliyahu replied, Hear the word of Yahweh. Thus says Yahweh, this time tomorrow a seah of choice flour shall sell for a shekel at the gate of Shamron, and 2 seahs of barley for a shekel. The aide on whose arm the king was leaning spoke up and said to the man of Yahweh, Even if Yahweh were to make windows in the sky, could this come to pass? And he retorted, You shall see it with your own eyes, but you shall not eat of it. There were 4 men, lepers, outside the gate. They said one to another, Why should we sit here, waiting for death? Now, in verse 4 starts the Haftadrah. If we decide to go into the town, what with the famine in the town, we shall die there, and if we just sit here, still we die. Come, let us desert to the Aramean camp. If they let us live, we shall live, and if they put us to death, we shall be put to death. They set out at twilight for the Aramean camp, but when they came to the edge of the Aramean camp, there was no one there. For Yahweh had caused the Aramean camp to hear a sound of chariots, the sound of horses, the din of the huge army. They said to one another, The king of Israel must have hired the king of the Hittites and the king of Mesraim to attack us. And they fled in the twilight, abandoning the tents and horses and asses, the entire camp just as it was, as they fled for their lives. When those lepers came to the edge of the camp, they went into one of the tents and ate and drank. When they carried off silver and gold and clothing from there and buried it, they came back and went into another tent, and they carried off what was there and buried it. Then they said to one another, We are not doing right. This is a day of good news, and we are keeping silent. If we wait until the light of morning, we shall incur guilt. Come, let us go and inform the king's palace. They went and called out to the gatekeepers of the city and told them, We have been in the Aramean camp. There is not a soul there, nor any man sound. but the horses are tethered, and the asses are tethered, and the tents are undisturbed. The gatekeepers called out, and the news was passed on to the king's palace. The king arose in the night and said to his courtiers, I will tell you that the Arameans have done to us. They know that we are starving, so they have gone out of the camp and hidden in the fields, thinking, when they come out of the town, we shall take them alive and get into the town. But one of the courtiers spoke up. Let the few of the remaining horses that are still here be taken there, are like those who are left here of the whole multitude of Israel, out of the whole multitude of Israel that have perished, and let us send and find out. They took 2 teams of horses, and the king sent them after the Aramean army, saying, Go, find out. They followed them as far as Jordan, and found the entire road full of clothing and gear, which the Arameans had thrown away in their haste. And the messengers returned and told the king. The people then went out and plundered the Aramean camp. So Sehah of choice flour sold for a shekel, and 2 sam for barley for a shekel, as Yahweh had spoken. Now the king had put the aide on whose arm he learned in the charge of the gate, and he was trampled to death in the gate by the people, just as the man of Yahweh had spoken, as he had spoken when the king came down to him. For when the man of Yahweh said to the king, This time tomorrow 2 seam of barley shall sell at the gate of Shemron for a shekel, and the Sehah choice flour for a shekel. The aide answered the man of Yahweh and said, Even Yahweh made windows in the sky. Could this come to pass? And he reported, You shall see it with your own eyes, but you shall not eat of it. That is exactly what happened to him. The people trampled him to death in the gate. May Yahweh bless you and keep you. Let's read what it says in the BeritHadasah, otherwise known as the New Testament. Matthew 13, 4-26. Matthew 13, 4-26. As he sowed, some seed fell alongside the path, and the birds came and ate it up. Other seed fell on rocky patches where there was not much soil. It sprouted quickly because the soil was shallow. But when the sun had risen, the young plants were scorched, and since their roots were not deep, they dried up. Other seed fell among thorns, which grew up and choked the plants. But others fell into rich soil and produced grain, 100 or 60 or 30 times as much as had been sown. Those who have ears, let them hear. Then the Talmudim came and asked Yeshua, What are you speaking to them in parables? He said, Because it has been given to you to know the secrets of the kingdom of heaven, but it has not been given to them. For anyone who has something will be given more, so what? He will have plenty. But from anyone who has nothing, even what he does have will be taken away. Here is why I speak to them in parable. They look without seeing and listen without hearing or understanding. That is, in them is fulfilled the prophecy of Yeshua, Yahweh, which said, "You will keep on hearing but not understand, and keep on seeing but not perceive, because the heart of his people has become dull. With their ears they barely hear, and with their eyes they have closed, so as not to see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their heart, and do teshuvah, so that I could heal them. But you, how blessed are your eyes, because you see, and your ears, because you hear. Yes, indeed, I tell you that many of the prophets and many of Sadiq longed to see the things you are seeing, but did not see them, and to hear the things you were hearing, but did not hear them. So listen to what the parable of the sower means. Whoever hears the message about the kingdom but doesn't understand it, it is like the seed sown along the path. The evil one comes and seizes what was sown on his heart. The seed sown in rocky ground is like a person who hears the message and accepts it with joy at once, but no root himself, so he stays on for a while. But as soon as some trouble or persecution arises on account of the message, he immediately falls away. Now the seed sown among thorns stands for someone who hears the message but is choked by the worries of the world and the deceitful clamor of wealth, so that it produces nothing. However, what was sown on rich soil is the one who hears the message and understands it. Such a person shall surely bear fruit 100 or 60 or 30 times what was sown. Then Yeshua put forth another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in the field. But while people were sleeping, his enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat, then went away. When the weed sprouted and formed heads of grain, the wheat also sprouted. The owner's servants came to him and said, "Sir, didn't you sow good seed in your field? We have the wheat. Where have the wheat come from?" He answered, "An enemy has done it." The servants asked him, "Then do you want us to pull them out?" But he said, "No, because if you pull out the wheat, you might uproot some of the wheat at the same time. Let them both grow together until the harvest. And at the harvest, I will tell the reapers to collect the weeds first and tie them in a bundle and to burn them, but to gather the wheat into the barn." Mark 5, starting at verse 24. He went with him, and a large crowd followed, pressing all around him. Among them was a woman who had had a hemorrhage for 12 years and had suffered a great deal under many physicians. She had spent her life savings, yet instead of improving, she had grown worse. She had heard about Yeshua, so she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his robe. For she said, But if I touch even his clothes, I shall be healed. Instantly the hemorrhage stopped, and she felt in her body that she had been healed from the disease. At the same time, Yeshua, aware that power had gone out of him, he turned around in the ground and asked, Who touched my clothes? His Talmudim responded, You see the people pressing in on you, and you still ask, Who touched me? But he kept looking around to see who had done it. The woman, frightened and trembling because she knew what had happened to her, came and fell down in front of him and told him the whole truth. Daughter, he said to her, your trust has healed you. Go in peace and be healed of your disease. Luke chapter 8, verse 42 to 48. For he had an only daughter, about 12 years old. She was dying. As he went with the crowd on every side, virtually choking him, the woman who had a hemorrhage for 12 years and could not be healed by him, came up behind him and touched his tzitzis on his robe. Instantly, her hemorrhaging stopped. Yeshua asked, Who touched me? When they all denied doing it, Kepha said, Rabbi, the crowd hemming you and jostling you. But Yeshua said, Someone touched me because I felt power go out of me. Seeing she could not escape notice, the woman, quaking in fear, threw herself down before him and confessed in front of everyone why she had touched him and how she had been instantly healed. He said to her, My daughter, your trust has saved you. Go in peace. Hebrews 13, verse 4. Marriage is honorable in every respect, and in particular, sex within marriage is pure, but God will indeed punish fornicators and adulterers. Father, we thank you. We praise your holy name. We thank you for the reading of your word, and we ask that you go with us, help us and guide us. And we thank you, Father, for everything that you have promised us. In Yeshua's name, amen.